Hillary Clinton has come out and said she will definitely be the Democratic nominee in November. Many are wondering where that leaves Senator Bernie Sanders. The senator was on Face the Nation earlier and talked about the uphill battle his campaign faces.
The way the math works out is that you need to win in those remaining contests by 40%. That's not just a steep hill, that's almost vertical, Senator.
Well, it is a steep hill, but we have won races by more than 40%. California has 475 delegates. I'm here in California. I think there's a very positive response in one of the most progressive states in this country. So, John, this is an uphill fight. We've got 46% of the pledged delegates right now. My hope is to make it to 50%.
CBS News political director and moderator of Face the Nation, John Dickerson, is in Washington. John, you asked Senator Sanders about his comments concerning DNC Chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and how he wouldn't reappoint her, and after the incidents with Sanders supporters in Nevada. How worried are Democratic insiders about party unity at this point if he's attacking the head of the DNC?
Well, they're worried about it, in part because of the flare-ups last week and because what can start as just a little family argument can set into irreconcilable differences pretty quickly. But they are heartened, at least at the moment, by polls that show Democratic voters are tolerating the back and forth here. The number of Sanders voters who say they will support Hillary Clinton is larger than the number of Clinton voters in 2008 who said they would support Barack Obama. So as long as there is nothing irrevocable that gets said or done that can't be fixed and papered over the way some of the disputes are being taken care of on the Republican side after a nominee is decided, they think they can get through it. The real question, and the one that Bernie Sanders is leaving out there, is when he says he's going to take his fight all the way to the convention, what does that mean? And how aggressive is he going to be?
Yeah, are party officials concerned that this tension could get worse?
Well, sure, but it depends on, it sort of has to be initiated by Bernie Sanders. And there was the fracas in Nevada, but that is kind of a limited thing. There was an existing irritation there. It would really require Bernie Sanders to press the case more aggressively, even than he has so far, for it to get worse. There definitely is a feeling among Sanders' supporters, which he did not sign on to today in our conversation, but there is a feeling among some number of Sanders supporters that the system is totally rigged, that the math that shows Sanders getting the nomination, which is formidable, almost essentially impossible for him to get the nomination, that has somehow been fixed or rigged or is a part of a conspiracy. And if that's the case, for that group, and we don't know how large that group is, then nothing is going to solve the sense of frustration and anger. And then the question is just how do they follow up on that? What do they do?
So based on that, John, and what you said a moment ago about Senator Sanders vowing to take his fight to the convention, whatever that means, the question a lot of people are asking is there a foreseeable way for Senator Sanders perhaps to get his supporters behind Hillary Clinton eventually?
Sure. The way that would work is essentially he says, I'm going to fight all the way to the convention. And then if he loses California, and New Jersey, and then Hillary Clinton gets the number of pledged delegates that she needs to get the nomination, he has a couple of options. One, he could continue his fight, try to convince the super delegates who are already in large numbers supporting Hillary Clinton. That would likely be an impossible task. And then he would just switch and say, the fight I'm continuing all the way to the convention is the fight for the issues and the people that I've based my campaign on. And he would talk about economic inequality. He would talk about poverty. He would talk about those who have no voice in an economic system that makes everything much easier for the 1%. And he would switch his campaign, and not really a switch, really. These are the issues that he's been campaigning on, that he would say, that's what I'm taking all the way to Philadelphia. And he would continue to make it a message and issue campaign. And in that context, Hillary Clinton could very easily say, and I agree with everything Bernie Sanders is saying, which is why the two of us are going to join hands and go forward. So it's they're not at all at the stage yet where you get to irrevocable breaks in the party.
John, we've seen polls that show Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in a dead heat. How much momentum does Donald Trump have at this point? Does he have the quote unquote big mo?
He doesn't have the big mo, but he has something that is a little surprising, which is that he has gotten essentially, both in our Battleground Tracker poll and in other polls, he's getting the kind of generic Republican vote. And that is a great place to start if you're Donald Trump in particular, because remember, for the last several weeks, as you of course know, we've been talking about how fractured the Republican Party is and how much of a problem it is that the Speaker of the House isn't supporting the nominee of the party, and that the party nominee has a whole series of ideas that he campaigned on at the center of his campaign, behind which very few, or maybe, well, just very few Republicans are actually signing up. They have not embraced his platform. Some Republicans who are up for re-election in the Senate in purple states are keeping him at more than arm's length. All of that should suggest some weakness in the Republican vote, and what the polls are showing right now is the Republicans are consolidating behind Donald Trump. So that's good news for him.
Were you surprised at those numbers?
I was a little surprised that the consolidation is happening as quickly as it is. Because you definitely see other areas in the polls in which Republicans are nervous about Donald Trump, scared about him, in fact. What he benefits from is not only his core of supporters that helped him win the nomination in his party, but we see in our poll and also in other polls that the number of Republicans who are supporting him because they don't like Hillary Clinton, that's really a strong motivating factor for Republicans. So that is not surprising, but what the sort of next thing to look for is once the Democrats finish their competition, how do they coalesce? What is their baseline number? And then you can compare the kind of bases of the two parties to see where the candidates really stand.
Lastly, John, we've seen Donald Trump come at Hillary Clinton and her husband hard this week with comments about bills passed and women and Hillary being an enabler. But Hillary Clinton has weathered these types of comments before, and I just wonder how you see it playing out this time around.
Well, we don't know how it's going to play out because while Hillary Clinton certainly has weathered these kinds of issues and attacks before, in fact, she's politically, just to put it in the crass calculation of politics, she's actually seen her approval improve the more her husband's past is discussed. And so we don't know, because in this case you have Donald Trump, who is saying things and saying them in a way that no candidate has ever said them before. And so we don't know how that's going to turn out. We know the strategy the Clinton campaign is following, which is to take any of these personal attacks and either ignore them or pivot and talk about the issues that might be at the center of them to the extent that she can. So we'll see how it plays out. But we are in really new territory here, not in terms of the topics, but in terms of Donald Trump and his campaign techniques, which usually have not been used in presidential politics before, at least in this century.
A lot to watch. All right, John Dickerson, thank you so much.
Thanks, Elaine.